Chapter 28. Very gently, using a little hammer and a long, thin nail, he nailed the board across the door. The garage trembled as he worked. He told us to keep back. We stood in the wilderness staring, shaking our heads. He got some black gloss paint and wrote "Danger" across the boards. He brought some Coke for us and some beer for himself, and we all sat against the house wall and stared at the garage. "Better get it made safe, eh?" said Dad. "My uncle's a builder," said Coot. "Always doing garages and extensions and stuff." "Aye, is he?" said Dad. "He'd tell you to knock the whole thing down and start again." "Would he now?" "Yeah, some folk fight to keep things that should have been smashed years ago." I looked at the garage and imagined it had gone, saw the big emptiness that would take its place. "Aye," said Coot again. "He says the best jobs start with a massive sledgehammer and a massive skip." He swigged his can of Coke. The blackbird flew onto the edge of the garage roof and perched there. I knew it would be watching the wilderness, looking for beetles and big fat juicy worms for its babies. "He wants us gone," I said. Coot pointed his finger and thumb like a gun. He eyed the bird as if he was aiming. "Gotcha," he said, and his hand recoiled as if he'd fired. Dad told Leaky and Coot it was good to see them again. "Michael's been moping," he said. "A good kickabout with his mates will be just what the doctor ordered." "Not against the garage, though," said Leaky. "No, not against that garage, no." We took the ball and went through the house into the front street again. Mina wasn't there. I played better this time, but I couldn't help turning to the empty tree. I imagined her alone with Skellig in the dark house. I caught them laughing at me. "Missing her already?" said Coot. I raised my eyes and tried to grin. I went to sit on our front garden wall. "Who is she, anyway?" said Leaky. I shrugged. "She's called Mina." "What school does she go to, then?" "She doesn't go to school." They looked at me. "What do you mean she doesn't go to school?" said Leaky. "Plays the wag?" said Coot. "No, her mum teaches her," I said. They looked again. "God," said Leaky, "I thought everyone had to go to school." "Imagine that," said Coot. They imagined it for a while. "Lucky so-and-so," said Leaky. What'll she do for mates, though?" said Coot. "And who'd like to be stuck at home all day long? The novelty'd definitely wear off after a while." "They think that schools stop you from learning," I said. "They think that schools try to make everybody the same." "That's rubbish," said Coot. "Aye," said Leaky. "You're learning all day long in school." I shrugged again. "Maybe." "Is that why you've not been coming in?" said Leaky. "Is that 'cause you're never coming back again? You're going to let that lass's mother teach you?" "Course not," I said. "But they're going to teach me some things." "What like?" "Like how to do models with clay, and about a guy called William Blake." "Who's he?" said Coot. "That bloke that's got the butcher's shop in town?" "He said school drives all joy away," I said. "He was a painter and a poet." They looked at each other and grinned. Leaky couldn't look me in the eye, and I could feel my face burning with embarrassment. "Look," I said, "I can't tell you anything, but the world's full of amazing things." Coot sighed and shook his head and bounced the ball between his knees. "I've seen them," I said. Leaky stared at me. I imagined taking him through the danger door, taking him to Skellig and showing him. For a moment I was dying to tell him what I'd seen and what I'd touched. "There she is," said Coot. We turned together and there was Mina climbing into the tree again. "Monkey girl," said Leaky. Coot giggled. "Hey," he said, "maybe Rasputin's right about that evolution stuff. He could come and look at her and see that there's monkeys all around us still." Her eyes were cold as she stared down at me from the tree, and her voice was sarcastic and sing-song. "Thank God I was never sent to school to be flogged into following the style of a fool." "You know nothing about it," I said. "We don't get flogged. My friends aren't fools." "Ha! That's it," I said. "You know nothing about it. You think you're special, but you're just as ignorant as anybody. You might know about William Blake, but you know nothing about what ordinary people do." "Ha!" she said again, sarcastically. "Yeah, ha!" I said back. I didn't really know what else to say. I stared at my feet. I picked my fingernails. I kicked the garden wall. Your friends hate me, she said. I could see it in their eyes. They think I'm taking you away from them. They're stupid. My friends aren't stupid, I retaliated. They are, stupid, kicking balls and jumping at each other and screeching like hyenas. Stupid hyenas, you as well. Hyenas? Well, they think you're a monkey then. Her eyes glared and her face burned. See? See what I mean? They know nothing about me, but they hate me. And of course you know everything about them, I replied sarcastically. I know enough. There's nothing to know. Kicking, screeching, being stupid. That's them. Ha! Yes, ha! And that little ginger one. Blake was little and ginger. How do you know that? See, you think nobody can know anything but you, I said to Mina. No, I don't. Ha! Her lips were pressed tight together. She pressed her head back against the trunk of the tree. Go home, she said. Go and play stupid football or something. Leave me alone. I gave the wall a last kick, then left her to it. I went into my front garden and through the open front door. Dad shouted hello from somewhere upstairs. I went straight through into the wilderness and squatted there and squeezed my eyes tight to try and stop the tears. The owls woke me, or a call that was like that of the owls. I looked out into the night. The moon hung over the city, a great orange ball with the silhouettes of steeples and chimney stacks upon it. The sky was blue around it, deepening to the blackness high above, where only the most brilliant stars shone. Down below, the wilderness was filled with patches of black shadow of the garage and a wedge of cold, silvery moonlight. I watched for the birds and saw nothing. Skellig, I whispered. Skellig, Skellig. I cursed myself, because in order to go to him now, I had to rely on Mina. I lay in bed again. I moved between sleeping and waking. I dreamt that Skellig entered the hospital ward, that he lifted the baby from her glass case and pulled the tubes and wires from her. She reached up and touched his pale, dry skin with her little fingers, and she giggled. He took her away and flew with her in his arms through the darkest part of the sky. He landed with her in the wilderness and stood there calling back to me. Michael! Michael! They both stood there laughing, and she bounced in his arms. They had lost all of their weakness and they were strong again. Michael! He called, his voice still squeaky, but his eyes were shining with joy now. Michael! 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 I woke up. I heard the owls again. I pulled on some jeans and a top and tiptoed downstairs and out into the wilderness. There was nothing there, of course, just the image of them burning in my mind. I stood listening to the city all around, its low, deep, endless roar. I went out through the shadows and into the back lane. Although I knew it was useless, I began to walk towards Mina's boarded house. Something brushed against me as I walked. Whisper, I whispered. The cat went with me, slinking at my side. The door into the garden was ajar, and the moon had climbed. It hung now directly over us. Behind the wall, the garden was flooded with its light, and Mina was waiting. She sat on the step before the danger door, elbows resting on her knees, pale face resting on her hands. I hesitated, and we watched each other. What took you so long? She said. I looked at her. Thought I'd have to do this all by myself, she said. I thought that was what you wanted, I said back. The cat prowled at her side and brushed itself on her legs. Oh, Michael, she said. I didn't know what to do, so I sat on the steps beneath her. We said stupid things, she said. I said stupid things. I said nothing. An owl silently flew down into the garden and perched on the back wall. Hoot it went. Hoot, hoot, hoot. Don't be angry. Be my friend, she said softly. I am your friend, I said, embarrassed. It's possible to hate your friend. You hated me today. You hated me too. The other owl descended and perched in silence beside its partner. I love the night, said Mina, changing the subject. Anything seems possible at night time when the rest of the world's gone to sleep. I looked up at her silvery face, her inky black eyes, and I knew that in a dream I would see her as the moon with Skellig flying silently across her. I moved up closer to her. I'll be your friend, I said. She smiled and we sat there looking out at the moonlight. Soon the owls rose and headed for the centre of the city. We lay back together against the danger door, and I felt myself falling asleep. "Skellig," I hissed. "Skellig." We rubbed the sleep from our eyes. Mina pushed the key into the lock.